I'm Adam. I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's disease over 10 years ago now, and I'm 9 years in remission.
My name is Lynn Nesbitt. I was diagnosed with cancer 16 years ago, and it was a life-changing experience. And it's been, strange to say, a blessing, a huge blessing.
And we're going to be talking about our stories and what we did to help manage our cancers. And I hope you learned something for today.
So first of all, I just want to say how marvellous it is to see you.
Yeah, it's been what?
Absolutely brilliant. And 9 years since I moved to Suffolk, and brilliant. But I want to go back to in history. It seemed like history.
Feels like another lifetime.
It's like another existence, yes. But so 16 years ago, I had and I've still got it, a little lump here. And I didn't know what it was. It'd been there for years. I just thought it was a lump of gristle. And but then as I was going down the stairs from my flat, this leg gave way, and I thought, oh, what's that? Is that MS or something? So I decided to go to the doctor. The doctor referred me to a hospital, and this man did all sorts of tests, and I had blood tests, and the lump turned out to be nothing, still there, nothing. But when he saw the results of the tests, he said, "We think we've made a mistake. We've muddled up your test results with somebody else's, because you should be dying with these results." Yeah. "You should be dying?" I said, "Really?" He said, "Yes, so if you don't mind, we'll take the tests again." Which they did. They got the same results. And he said, "I have to pass you on to a haematologist." So I went to the haematologist consultant, and he looked at the test results, etc., etc. He said, "Well, I think I know what it is, but I think you need to have a biopsy." So he took some plasma from my spine. I think it was from my spine. And he said, "Well, actually you have lymphoma and multiple myeloma equally badly."
Oh, God.
And it's very rare. He said, I think I might have seen one. He hadn't seen one, but he'd heard. And he was going to write a paper about it and all that. And so then he just decided, they didn't know what, he said, "I wouldn't know which one to treat." He said, "But as you don't need any treatment right now, because you don't have any symptoms, and the treatment would not cure it, it would only relieve the symptoms. There's no point in giving it to you until you really need it." And at that point, I thought, this is amazing, because I would want to argue with him about the treatment. And I don't have to.
Kind of just took the weight off it.
It took it, and you know something? I know this might sound funny, but I do have a spiritual master, a woman, and she said, people with cancer are very fortunate because they have an opportunity to come closer to God. I didn't know what that meant, but when I got this diagnosis, I thought, oh my God, I'm in that club. It's a gift.
It's a blessing, isn't it?
It's a blessing. It's a gift. And so I was on my own. I live on my own. And so I had to deal with this shock. And there was no doubt that I had shock. I didn't know I had shock at the time, but my hair started to fall out. And I didn't quite know what to do, but I realised that I was free. Mm. And it just so happened that my gentleman friend on the Isle of Man was a healer, and he had this network of healers. And I started to go to all these off-piste people and started the most amazing lot of healing, which introduced me to a completely alternative approach. You know, even shamanic healing, which I was already into shamanism a bit. And so I went, and I had to heal my relationships with my ex-husband and with my family, you know, my ancestors. So there's healing at different level. So then I just started this regime, and one of these healers had an amazing library, and one of the books was The Oxygen Revolution. And that's how I came across hyperbaric oxygen as well. And there was another reason why I took the hyperbaric oxygen.
Did they give you any time frame at this point? Like, they just have monthly bloods, or did they give you a time frame when they expect you might need treatment, or they just kind of left you?
He didn't give me a time frame, but he said, "We'll because you've got no symptoms, we'll give you a blood test in another 6 months." So that's quite long, because now they're every 2 months. But at the beginning they were 6 months, and as I kind of built up my repertoire, and I mentioned a little bit, he said, "Well, I'd like to know what you're doing, and bring in any equipment that you have." So I brought in various things like the ozone machine and a violet ray machine that was supposed to increase oxygen, because the whole point I realised, because I was doing a lot of research myself, was that I had to detox and oxidize, increase the oxygen. So I brought all this stuff into his office and put it on his desk, and he looked at it, he said, "I don't have a desk big enough for this." You know, and he was very patronising. He was patronising all the way through, except at one time he said, "Well, obviously I don't believe in any of all this." He said, "But it's doing you good, so carry on." And I thought that was so funny. It was like an oxymoron. Yeah. He was the moron and I was the oxy. Yes. So
was he cooperative with anything you were doing, or was it just point blank kind of?
Oh, he just left me to it.
Right.
Yes. He didn't really ask. He wasn't interested. And at the very end, when I was saying goodbye and when I was moving away from London, and I thanked him, I said, "There's one thing I'm disappointed about, which is that you've never actually asked about what I do, because we were already 7 years into me still not having any, being given a death sentence, but no symptoms."
It's incredible.
Yeah, it is. And
but it's very rare he even sees that.
That's right. Yes. He said he had seen one woman who went 15 years. Well, I'm in my 16th year. Anyway, he said, when I mentioned this, I said, "You could be helping people." And all he said was, "It's beyond my remit. It's beyond my remit, Adam." And I said, "But your remit is healing people." But it's not. We could talk about that forever. When you were diagnosed, why did you go in the first place for?
Sure. Well, this is the thing with me. Obviously, I was quite young at the time, so I was just turned 20, I believe. So when I look back, I did have symptoms up to a year prior, but not. My cancer was internal, so I didn't have any visible external lumps that I felt and thought, what's that?
What was your cancer? Is
Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Hodgkin?
Blood cancer.
Yeah, same as me.
Oh, is Hodgkin's?
Well, I never quite know. I think
Non-Hodgkin's and Hodgkin's.
I don't know which one it is. I've forgotten.
Anyway, so Hodgkin's is actually one of the most treatable cancers. One of the few that is deemed, curable. Unfortunately for me, it wasn't the case. So usually with Hodgkin's disease, even stage 4, there's not much difference in the prognosis. 90% of people can be cured with the first line of treatment. Very responsive to chemotherapy. So anyway, cut back. So I didn't have any, it was kind of underlying symptoms. My immunity is very low. I was getting frequent cold flus, worse than usual. But I did get a couple of red flag symptoms, which I now know were red flags. But at the time, I didn't think anything of it. So I'd wake up with nights. So I wake up from sleep in complete night sweats, drenched in sweat in my bed. But basically I was going back and forth from the GP and I was kind of getting fobbed off, to be honest with you, because, one, they only get 5 minutes in there, with the actual GP, and 2, I was quite young, so they didn't suspect. Eventually I saw the guy who started the GP practice, older guy, Dr. Froley, and he was renowned for, you'd be waiting an hour to go see him. He was always behind, but that's because he actually spent time with his patients. And as soon as he saw me, he weighed me, he did all the necessary things and said, right, I want to see some bloods. Got some bloods done. Next day they rang me, said you need to go A&E. Went down to A&E, and then this is where it kind of, I was misdiagnosed at that point again. So I was meant to have a chest x-ray. They did an ultrasound of my liver that showed there was liver inflammation. And I was meant to have an x-ray of my chest, which got lost in the notes. So basically I was misdiagnosed as having hepatitis. So they kept me as an inpatient in the hospital for about a week, put me on some fluids. I did feel a little bit better, but obviously then they discharged me and things really from that point really accelerated. And so to skip the journey on a little bit, I think it was a couple of months after that, I eventually had a CT scan that picked up lymphoma. And to be honest with you, by this point, I was bedridden. It was a very advanced stage. I was, majorly.
In a couple of months?
Well, I was kind of staying indoors a lot since then, but I mean to the point where I couldn't no longer stand up for if I stood up for longer than a minute, I would kind of get this black kind of thing, and I basically felt like I was going to faint. So, I remember trying to walk down to the GP and I couldn't. My mum had to come pick me up to take me home, which was 10 minutes down the road. So I was unable to make food. I was, at home every day. And so it was really serious at that point. So eventually when they told me I had this lymphoma, I had no idea what lymphoma was. I remember I shook his hand. I was thank you. They told me I've got something. I didn't know what it was at that point. And my dad kind of knew, he was with me at the time. But then it slowly started daunting on me what news actually was, and they explained it obviously. So cut long story short, then I had to find out what type of lymphoma. Found out I had Hodgkin's, so that was, okay, even though it was quite bad, it was quite a good prognosis at that point because the chemotherapy tends to work very quickly and effectively, which it did, to be fair. Within 2 months, it halved it. I was back up on my feet. I noticed the difference immediately. So, I'm not one of these people who says to people you shouldn't take any chemotherapy, because for Hodgkin's disease, it's likely to cure you. It's just that, unfortunately, about 4 months into my chemotherapy, it stopped working and it progressed. And
So why it stopped working when?
Well, this is the thing, they can do tests which can indicate whether you're going to be responsive to chemotherapy, believe it or not. There are tests that can be done. So it's kind of assessing what pathways the cancer cells are using, etc. So there's a whole other and that's the kind of new science that's coming out now, where you can really find, tailor treatment based on your specific cancer. But then within that, there's genetic differences and variances. So for whatever reason, it stopped working. And so then it, this kind of 90% figure that I was told is now, I realise is not the case. And so they picked me on another chemotherapy, a stronger chemotherapy, and I had a very severe life-threatening reaction to that, basically caused severe nephrotoxicity to my kidneys. So they had to put me under for about 48 hours. I woke up in the Chelsea Marsden, and basically I've had, in one sense, the chemotherapy saved my life at that stage. And on the other hand, I've been on the other side of it where it can kill you if you're not careful. And, you know, my family were told they didn't know if I was going to make it through that or if I'd be brain damaged or whatever. So I was in intensive care of him. So eventually when it come round from that, luckily I pulled through. You know, I still had to stay in the hospital for a couple of weeks, but I still had, you know, got through that, but I still had cancer and it was still progressing, spread again at that point. So that's the point where I started really, okay, I need to start looking at other things and really taking on board other healing modalities and other advice. And, you know, I don't like calling it alternative.
What made you think of that? Because as far as I'm concerned, it's probably a really important point of looking at other things, because most people don't. They give themselves up completely to the great doctor, thinking that the doctor knows best.
I think it was a mix of reasons. I think my personality is, I always wanted to be proactive in some way, but it's kind of discouraged from doing a lot. And also, when you get cancer, you're flooded with people. So, you know, and obviously when you're researching, a lot of stuff comes up. But I think it was mainly due, I knew the treatment wasn't working, and intuitively I felt it was doing more harm than good, to be honest, at this point, and it basically did. So I remember, you know,
Me too.
I think it was not long after that I probably heard about hyperbaric oxygen as well. I can't remember exactly what point, but it would have been, you know, starting getting introduced to all these other ideas and all these other things. And so eventually I went on a couple of more treatments after that, including clinical trial, which unfortunately didn't work either. But luckily the immunotherapy from the clinical trial was a lot more tolerable. So unlike chemotherapy where you're just out for, you know, weeks, I was able to have, you know, get out and about. So I wasn't kind of wiped out. So I think that was the point where I started visiting Swanley, where I met you.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I think because it was an MS centre, wasn't it? So, you know, it took me about an hour and a half there. I went there 3-4 times a week. And I remember thinking to myself, at that one point, there was more people in there with cancer than there was with MS a lot of the time. And you had to be quite on the ball, didn't you, to be going there for cancer at that point, because it wasn't as well known.
Oh, no, it wasn't well known.
As it is now. And to find out,
How did you find out about?
But hyperbaric, do you know what? It might have been, there was a very good website for cancer called Cancer Active. Do you remember that?
Oh,
Chris Woolham's?
Chris Woolham's, I still
Me too.
it still comes through to me.
Yeah.
Get his email.
That was a very good resource.
Brilliant.
And I think it was a bit of research he posted, I think.
I think everybody should look at Chris Woolham's website.
Yeah. So, yeah, and anyway, I ended up going to this Swanley Centre. I had no idea what on earth I was getting involved with, like what I was getting into. Basically, it's like how do you describe it? Like it's like, because divers use it as well, isn't it? They're in a chamber.
It's like a big diving tank.
Diving tank.
That I think it seated 8 people.
Yeah.
Inside, in a circle. The first one I went to was on the Isle of Man, and that was a long chamber. It wasn't a circle, and we had these 2 long benches, so we were sort of seated opposite, but the circle worked well. And, you know, once you've got used to a slightly claustrophobic atmosphere, it was very friendly and cosy, and you could take your computer in or your phone or a book.
Well, I remember it's just at that point, you know, when you get into all this stuff with cancer, it's like this whole other world you've been introduced to. And the learning never stops. Even now, you know, there's always research, there's always things that are coming out. So I never read a book in my life, to be honest with you, before getting cancer. Not really, but I was reading, you know, dozens and dozens of books, and that was a good time where I did that in the chamber, on the train up there. And not only that, we were sharing. There was 4 of us: me, you, Angela, and Donna, who sadly passed away.
Yeah.
But we were all sharing knowledge and things we learned to each other. And actually, Angela's one who put me on to getting a hypothermia sauna dome, which I then eventually got at home and started using, which is another kind of integrative therapy. So it was a really good hub of knowledge, really.
Yeah.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the same, the one that I've been going to as a centre. Now I've got my own.
So how did you feel did you notice difference physically?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The thing about taking oxygen therapy is you don't notice because your general level of well-being goes up and it's subtle. But what I noticed was that I would go on a Tuesday and then Tuesday evening, I would travel from Lewisham to West London to go to my meditation group. And you could pass through London Bridge. London Bridge has got 3 sets of escalators. And at the end of the evening, after I'd done lots of sort of organising and picking up heavy things but also being rejuvenated, I have to say, by what was going on there. But there was a lot of physical activity. And then I had this long journey, hour and a half journey home. When I got to London Bridge, I could walk up 3 sets of escalators without any bother. Passing all these youngsters, I would walk up quite smug.
So you had literally physical proof then?
And, well, no, it was when I didn't go to the oxygen therapy centre, I couldn't do it. And I thought, oh my God, this is proof that the difference this makes. And also, when I came to Suffolk and went to Chedgrave Therapy Centre, I had to find a house that was very near a centre because the oxygen was key. And it was only 15 minutes away, amazing. And it was brilliant. But then it closed down twice for quite long periods. And I was really feeling the difference. Absolutely. And I thought, yes. So I had to find another centre. And then actually, that was how I eventually came across Oxydise. My son found it. And I've now got one at home, spoiling the look of my bedroom.
But that's just a game changer, because now people can access this from home and they don't have to travel, because some places charge really high rates as well. I mean, that's why I was going to the MS Centre, because it was a bit cheaper with them. But, it was really out of my way. And sometimes you've got cancer, you get too fatigued. You can't physically travel.
But what I would like to also talk about a bit is, because I know that people are going to be watching this, and it's really important to let people know why we are here and we're alive, and even after 16 years and a pretty poor prognosis, and still actually not a good prognosis even now, I'm still feeling brilliant. You're feeling brilliant. You're running your own business. You've got amazing. And there's one word, which is responsibility.
Yep. You have to take responsibility when it comes to your health. You can't, it's your health, and what the medical system can offer, that's what they can offer. But there's so much that can be done around that. Just take nutrition as one example. That's a huge proactive thing that someone can do to, if it can help lessen the side effects, just make you feel more energized. And we know there's a lot of research into the compounds within foods and things that can help. So just, exercise, so much research on that. And yeah, you have to be proactive.
Yeah. But also there's other levels. There are other levels. And another level is attitude. So the responsibility, the feeling of responsibility is is taking responsibility for your own body, because you've got a relationship with your body which your doctor doesn't have. Your doctor doesn't have the same relationship with your body that you have. You've invested much more into your body than he has. And so it's your attitude to whatever you're doing, and it's the positive attitude that if you take responsibility, it means that you are in control.
Yeah.
And I can think of my life as being extremely stressful, very stressful in marriage. Our first child died. My job was stressful. And my reaction was, shoulders go up, jaw, everything. And so when I started to be introduced to these different therapies, a lot of them were about reducing stress. I already meditated, which must have helped a lot, actually, without me realizing it. And also the infrared sauna.
Oh, you had one of those as well.
I've got an infrared sauna in my shed, and I go into my shed and hope that the neighbours can't see me when I take off my clothes, and sit in this
Dome kind of thing?
No, it's a chair. You sit in a chair, which is, you zip it up, and you everything's zipped up. If you need a handkerchief, you have to unzip where your arms are and sort of reach out and go, a hand comes out. And it goes up to 47 degrees centigrade. Centigrade. It's very hot. You sweat. And then after that, it's my spa experience, because, I've sweated. Then I go in and have a bath with magnesium, and then a shower to wash off the magnesium. So it takes me forever. Yeah.
No, I was on this conveyor belt of treatments which were not working, that were making it worse, and being kind of felt that there was nothing in my power that I could do to help my situation. When I realised that wasn't the case, and even every little thing can help, even like you said, just your thoughts or meditation, that really gave me a massive psychological boost, knowing that, and also becoming knowledgeable about what I was doing and why I was doing it. So what nutrients in that type of food, or what the hyperbaric does, and becoming educated, and because it made me more conscious what I was doing, and that almost kind of more confident, and almost like a, potentially a placebo effect is what, the mind believing that that's good for you, is going to, and also similarly, believing something is bad that's not going to help. So after that experience of getting admitted into intensive care, basically what happened was I started having, my sodium levels were dropping in my blood to the dangerous levels, because my kidneys were damaged, if you like. So what happened was I started having seizures, and I don't remember, for the first time I had the seizure, I don't remember anything for about 48 hours, because they had to eventually put me under in a coma to kind of get me under control. So they had to move me from Sutton Marsden to Chelsea Marsden. So all this period I have no recollection of. Apparently I was just like a bit of a zombie almost. I was kind of half there, half kind of not there. Obviously my family were with me during that period. No one knew what was going on. And eventually I came round, had to, be fed through, electrodes, waking up from this as I had like electrodes every part of my body, a feeding tube. And I just felt, because I've been under anaesthetic, I just felt like I've been in a long dream or something. When I came out, my family actually said that when I came out, because I was still quite high for drugs, I was like I was been out on a night out with the lads. I was like, hey, mum, hey, dad, not knowing what was going on. And then eventually they kind of explained what had happened, and then it started dawning on me. And so that was quite a difficult period. So I remember would have been 21 at the time. And, I remember at this age, people that I went to school with were finishing uni. So I'm looking on, social media, and people are, getting on with their lives and, finishing uni or whatever. And here I am kind of stuck in intensive care, and they had to move me at one point to another unit with a lot of elderly people. And I was the most critical one there, ironically. And it was a bit of a surreal experience, really, because, I didn't know what was kind of going to happen. But anyway, from that point is when I really started becoming a lot more proactive. I was willing to do anything I could, basically. No stone was unturned. So, tons of supplement. I had a daily routine that I did every day. It was a very strict diet. It took me 2 hours in the morning to get through all my beverages and supplements and exercise and rebounding and all these things. And that gradually built. And the more information I gained, the more I did. And then eventually I started going to Hyperbaric at Swanley. And basically I had 5 conventional treatments, 2 chemotherapies, 2 immunotherapies, and radiotherapy. So the next 2 treatments, 2 immunotherapies, also didn't work. The clinical trial I was on at UCH did a little bit, but it progressed towards the end of that. But actually, all that time spent doing it wasn't wasted, because I was learning all that process. I was learning and refining what I was doing. And so I got to the point where the kind of last treatment on the cards really was radiotherapy. This was when firstly I had to make a decision whether or not to go on the trial radiotherapy. I went with the trial. Luckily it hadn't spread again, so I was able to still do the radiotherapy. Otherwise that wouldn't have been an option. But when it came to actually doing the radiotherapy, now I look back on a lot of the research with hyperbaric and a lot of these things, a lot of the things I was doing, some of which I knew, some of which I didn't, was actually, potentially potentiating the radiotherapy. In other words, making it work better, or what they call a radiosensitizer. So making my cancer cells more vulnerable to the radiation. So everything I learned and was doing up to that point probably gave me the best chance I had with the radiotherapy. And after I had that, I had a complete response to that. And this is when I came to, it wasn't over then, unfortunately. I then still had to make a decision whether they were saying, well, because you've got aggressive type of disease, got 80% chance of it coming back, 75 to 80% chance. If it does, there's kind of no more treatments. They would offer me something a bit more in the view of not curative, put it that way. So do I want to go and have a bone marrow transplant as a means of preventing relapse? But obviously, they probably talk to you about bone marrow transplant as well, I'd imagine.
They've mentioned it, but not necessarily to give it to me. And I'm not sure I want somebody who has his bone marrow in my orchid, to tell you the truth.
I mean, for anyone who isn't aware, it's probably one of the biggest procedures you can go through. It's especially if it's, you can get this different types. You can get it off your own cells and get it off of donor cells.
Well, this is what he said.
Yeah. And the risks are a lot more high up if it's from someone else.
Yeah.
Because effectively what they're doing is they give you the strongest chemotherapy there is. Chemotherapy is still derived off mustard gas, how they discover chemotherapy. And the aim of that is to destroy your immune system, because they need to get your immune system out of the picture before they can give you someone else's immune system, basically. And so you have to be kind of incubated for all that period. The whole process can take up to a year with no guarantee that you can working. You could go through that whole experience and then it could come back and they have to do it again. So I had this initial, great that you got this all clear, but then I still had this thing hanging over my shoulder about what to do next. So it was a bit of a difficult decision to make because if I didn't do it and the cancer did come back, there wouldn't be any options left. But if I did do it, and first of all, there's no guarantee it works, 25% chance of dying from the procedure itself. And that didn't really sit right with me, to be honest. And also, so I had to make this big ultimatum really about what treatment path to go down next. And this is when I came to you and I thought about it a lot about, I think
when you say you came to me,
we were talking at this, I think I've given you an update on the situation. So at that point, I got the all clear, but I still needed to make a decision whether or not I need to go ahead with the stem cell transplant. So, there were big risks that came along with having it, including, mortality from the procedure itself, and it not working, and also because of the intense treatment you're given for it, they can stack up and produce more risk of secondary cancer and organ damage long term. So the whole thing was just, and that was, to be honest with you, always the scariest, because it was always kind of, they said to me from the beginning, after the first chemo wasn't working, and the likelihood is I'm going to need a transplant. So it was always in the back.
Transplant of kidney?
No, bone marrow.
Oh, bone marrow.
Stem cell. So it's always the biggest and scariest thing that's in the back of my mind. And basically, yeah, if I didn't have it and it came back, then there's no options left at all. So it was quite a big ultimatum really to make at that time. And intuitively, I felt like everything I was doing felt right and felt like it was helping me, and it was doing me good. Like we were saying about the oxygen, it was helping to correct the environment. So now I'm in remission. If you can make the environment inhospitable to cancer, that's the way I looked at it. That's your best chance of stopping it coming back. Because when people, it does come back, often, this is about just in the medical system, they get the chemo and they have the treatment and they just left. But they're not doing anything.
They're not doing anything. Everybody has to
Continue, exactly.
with their own remedies.
Right.
All the time.
All the time.
Forget that.
Also, there's another important point, actually. So after I had the radiotherapy, there's a 3-month period before they know if it's worked, because they need to let the radiation settle before they scan you. So in that period as well, I did also have high dose intravenous vitamin C. And I was also doing Rife machine. I was also doing hypothermia at home. So I put it down to all of these things combined that gave me the best outcome. I'm sure the radiotherapy would have had a large effect, but I think it was all of these things that helped. And also I chose not to have the transplant. And I believe it was all these things which I continued to do, which kept me in remission to this day. And I remember I was giving you an update at the centre one time, and I told you, Lynn, this is, kind of what this decision I have to make. And something you said to me stuck with me, because I think you did some kind of shamanic thing or something and said to me, make a choice out of love, not fear.
Yeah, I did a shamanic journey on your behalf. You didn't know that I was doing.
No, I didn't know.
No, but
you just kept, the next time I saw you
do it. Yes, and I thought I have to find out what direction he needs to go.
And that really stuck with me, because up to that point, for me, making the decision of going with the transplant was out of fear, because it would be fearful of it coming back, doubting what I was doing. And whereas, up until this point, I've been on this conveyor belt of treatments, which I knew kind of weren't, helping me to, and so what felt right for me and what a decision out of love was like love for myself. So keep doing what you're doing, and that's the best chance I have, really. Because I thought to myself, the way that really swung it was, imagine if I did do the transplant, and it didn't work out, or God forbid it, even more serious than that. I put myself in that position in the future, and I imagined myself in that position. I thought to myself, if that happened, I would have been kicking myself. I didn't do what I knew I should have done, what I knew was right, and that would have been a miserable, existing end, basically. And that was really, whereas if I did it the way I wanted to, and it didn't work out I still would have done what was right by me. So it was a win-win in a way. Do you know what I mean?
So let me just break in here, because this is another point, is trust your intuition.
That's
Trust your intuition, your gut feeling.
Exactly that. Because that's when you have to make these difficult decisions, as often you do with cancer. That was, and that you can, there's ways to, access that, I believe. Meditation and some of these practices that can help you get some kind of guidance. I do believe we had that.
I've reached a point now where I have to make a decision whether or not to take the chemotherapy, because
at this point,
yes, the last chance saloon sort of thing, and I'm trusting my intuition, and I'm so pleased that you've reminded me about what I said, because I never remember what I say to people.
You just reinforced what I kind of already felt.
The love, yeah. So And I know that it's about honouring your body. It's actually about loving. It's about loving yourself, honouring your body. And you've reminded me of that phrase, so thank you for that.
Well, I mean, look, your intuition has served you this far, so I'm sure it will now help you now. But it's not easy because
Do you know something as well, which is very important to say? It's about the fear of death. And I haven't got over it, but I'm working on it. Because I'm not afraid of death, but I'm afraid of dying, which is a different thing.
Yeah.
It's the manner of dying, leaving people. Actually, we don't, but leave them, but it will feel like it's how they feel. So it's actually at the back of everything that we have talked about is the fear of death. And this is something that everybody has to face. We know we have to face it at some stage. And when I was given the diagnosis, I said to him, "Oh, well, I've got to die of something, so I suppose I'll be dying of this." I said that to him, in the end, it doesn't matter. But we don't have to think of destiny in our thoughts about death. We've still got choice to do, as you said, you'll be, I was about to say you'll be killing yourself if you didn't, thinking that you hadn't made that decision. Sorry. But that is, it's fundamental to life, actually. And I can't say I've conquered it at all, but it's something that we have to work with all the time, and the fear of death is actually about the fear of the ego, because we think we're the ego. Once you realize you're not the ego, it's so much easier not to fear death. Because it's the death of the body. But we also owe it to our body to do the very best for our body.
Yeah, exactly. I'm 9.5 years in remission now. So obviously made the right decision to trust my instincts and keep doing what I was doing. You don't just stop, you have to keep doing it. Obviously it's not as intense now as it was for the couple of years immediately after, but and I also stopped going for scans as well. I didn't bother because I didn't want to know. And also the cumulative radiation from the scans was playing on my mind. So I had one more scan after that, and from that point I never had another one. And here I am. And now I am a nutritionist working with cancer patients, clients directly, to fill in that gap that I experienced. Because, I remember sitting there in the hospital and they've got, especially where if you're a young person, it's even worse because they're serving you up burgers and chips in the hospital, and you've got vending machines of fizzy drinks and all that side of
crazy, isn't it?
And so I just wonder if people had all this information provided to them from the outset, how much better they would do, how much better they would potentially respond to the treatments or the side effects even. Because I think in my personal experience, I did see a difference. So if people had that knowledge, because the problem is now there's too much information and a lot of disinformation. So you've got to wind your weight, exactly. And then you take that to the doctor and they would advise against it. And so it becomes really difficult to navigate. And often when you're diagnosed, it can be, you're quite serious and you've got too much stress to deal with already. So as a patient, you haven't got time to look into things. So I feel like it's helpful to have someone who's kind of knows the kind of experience well and can help guide through that, especially when it comes to just basic things like what to eat, what not to eat, because then it can be, nuanced from cancer to cancer. And so I find it quite fascinating how every cancer different. It's not just one disease. It's one disease in a way, but it's over 100 different diseases, and then you've got genetics and the person, the individual, which is unique. So, I think that's the way it's going in terms of really fine-tuning and personalising someone's treatment. You have your conventional treatment that's offered, but around that, there's so much you can do as the patient, which is empowering. It's a positive thing, and people shouldn't be discouraged from doing that, I don't think. And you're a testament to that. I mean, it was 16 years ago now. You were diagnosed, Lynne.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you've maintained it. So, and actually, that was a really good thing when I met you, because you were the first person I knew personally who was managing their disease a different way. So you hear these stories, and sometimes you see these stories in the media, but then you find out that there's more to it. It's just to give you a headline, and there's a lot more actually. They had some form of
inspiring to sort of
definitely. And I've since met other people as well. So it was reassuring, inspiring for me to meet you as well on that journey.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of the hyperbaric, I found that it really helped me, my energy levels. One of the potential risks of my radiotherapy was pneumonitis. It was quite serious, lung inflammation that could have happened. And I didn't have any of that. To be honest, my experience of radiotherapy was a walk in the park compared to the chemotherapy. But I know that a lot of the things I was doing, including the hyperbaric, not only may have potentially made it work better, but also you recover better. You oxygenate the body. There's a lot of evidence that it can actually help your body recover faster. And so I feel like those are really two areas that really helped me. And as I said, continuing that from that point was really helpful to keep, going back to the idea of keeping the environment oxygenated and as cancer inhospitable as possible, really. That was my kind of thinking behind it. So I think I continued with it for at least another 2 years, not as intensely as I was doing it, maybe 2-3 times a week. But it really helped me. And energy, like you said, energy levels as well, I noticed, because I was really anemic at some stages. And, just even walking sometimes was a struggle. Going upstairs, I really noticed sometimes. But after, it's accumulative as well. So more sessions you had, you noticed more benefit as well. But that's why it's so good what, Oxydise and doing, because now people can access this thing from home. So they don't have to travel as we did, sometimes hours away to get this benefit. It's available in your own home. So I think that's a really positive
Yes, I agree.
thing.
You can choose your time. Working with the hyperbaric oxygen chamber has changed my life, really, because I've got so much more energy. It's an absolute adjunct to my way of life.